All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Great to be with you again on this Tuesday. I hope everyone is doing well. And this video is entitled "The News Goes Right Over Their Heads," and it's probably not aimed at the people that you're thinking I'm going to aim it at. So I'm looking forward to talking about that with you today. But before we really dive into the meat of the subject, I just want to remind everybody that today at 12:45, after this show goes off at 12:30, at 12:45 here, I will be going backstage on Patreon. So if you're a patron, you can join me over there, and we will just sit around and continue this conversation for a few more minutes. And sometimes we get off in the weeds and talk about other things, and we have a good time over there. So if you've not yet checked it out, be sure to. And for you patrons, I will be with you at 12:45 after the show is over. So thank y'all so much for that. I also want to give a shout out and thanks to everyone who is listening over on Spotify. Thank y'all so much for joining us over there. We have a lot of people who have long commutes to work, and they need something to be able to listen to on the way there, and they ain't got time to tune into this show at 12 Eastern every Tuesday, so they can pick it up whenever they want to. So if you're listening to this on a Thursday or the following Saturday, whenever you're listening to it, thanks for taking the time out of your day to do so. But yeah, folks, there is a lot of news happening right now, and I'm going to describe to you what it's like if you're in my shoes reacting to it. I'm going to do the old bull in the china shop reference, okay? So let's say that I spend most of my days, which I do, talking about the news, 24/7 basically. I'd never take a day off. I'm always doing this. But let's say that I do decide, hey, tomorrow I'm going to take my kids and we're going to go and we're going to get some school clothes because school's about to start back. So we're going to go school shopping. So I need to get a few videos set to come out. That way, they continue to come out on YouTube. Everybody will still see they'll still see that I'm keeping up. But then I'm going to post those two videos to come out, and I'm going to take that day to just go off with the kids and get school clothes. Okay? Well, I can do that. I can walk away, and I can go spend the day with my kids, and I can leave two videos to come out at, say, 11 a.m., one to come out at 5 p.m., boom, the day's taken care of. But what's happening while I'm gone is the news is still happening. And poor old Aaron Parnas is over there every few minutes going, we have some breaking news, and it just continues to get worse. It continues to steamroll. And so if you take a day off like that I have, and then you come back at the end of the day and you try to figure out, okay, where am I going to start now to get back in the saddle and to do more content? And it's like if you owned a china shop, had all this fine china in it, and you left and you came home and a bull had ran through it. And you're looking at it and you're going, hey, yeah, this used to be my china. And yeah, I recognize that piece over here. I think it goes with this piece over here, but damn. And you're standing there, and then somebody says, well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to talk about? That's kind of what it's like, because it really feels like that right now we are living with a bull in a china shop. We're living with someone who is just absolutely running wild with our country, with our democracy, with our Constitution, with everything we ever deemed sacred. He's just absolutely running crazy with it. And shout out and kudos to Aaron Parnas for staying on top of it at every minute that it happens, because I think I would lose my mind if I did it the way he did. I'm the guy that he breaks the news and then I take a minute and chew on it and react to it to you. That's pretty much it. But when you come home, he's made 20 videos of all this breaking news. And what's so crazy about it is it's 20 different things. It's like it's so much stuff happening that you go, okay, what do we want to focus on? So what I would like to focus on is not necessarily one story in particular, but I would like to talk about how that the news goes right over so many people's heads because they're not tuned into it. See, here's the thing, folks. Right now we got 679 people in here on a Tuesday at noon. Thank you all so much for being here. But that's 679 people that tunes into politics and consumes current events on a daily basis. Those of you that follow my channel and leaves comments every day, and shout out to all the members here on YouTube, you all consume this type of content with me every single day. And so you know what's going on. There are a whole lot of people out there who aren't paying a bit more attention to what me and you are talking about or what we're paying attention to than anything. So when I say the news goes right over their heads, I'm not even talking about the Trump supporters. I'll go ahead and get them out of the way. And then we'll move on to what I really want to talk about. This may sound like I'm being cold-hearted, and maybe I am. But I say when it comes to the die-hard MAGA cult members, the ones that have hung with him from day one and they're not letting go, the ones that are still waving their flags as hard as they ever waved it. Walk away from those people, okay? I hate to say it. At this point, they're just a lost cause. Just forget about it. And here's why. They will always find something to nerd out over and something to give them power. They always have. And I'm going to tell you how I know that. Growing up here in the South, I don't know if y'all have flea markets where you live, and you may have them out west or up north, but I know they're nothing like a southern flea market. If you go to a southern flea market, you know what's popular in pop culture because every other booth will be trying to sell whatever that is. So back in the 80s, I remember there being nothing but, when I was a kid walking through those flea markets, every other booth was trying to sell me a Motley Crue shirt. Every other booth was trying to sell me a Poison record. Which I would much rather go back to that, even though I'm not a fan of 80s hair bands. I would much rather go back to that than this shit today, but I'm just saying, that's what was popular. Then in the 90s, you had the Attitude Era of WWE, and every other booth was selling you an Austin 316 or an NWO shirt. And then you saw stuff like the Orange County Choppers blow up, and Duck Dynasty blew up, and these people, the same people that are the hardcore MAGA cultists, have always been cultish over something else, is the point I'm making. It's just that Donald Trump hijacked that mindset of people, okay? And so he brought them into politics, and the sad part about that is they helped to empower a man do things that they had no clue how any of it worked. If Trump is gone tomorrow, they will find something else to nerd out and get culty about, no matter what. They'll find something else to move on to. So we can always point out their ridiculousness. We can always talk about how it's a detriment, and we can always try to use it as an example to the apolitical people who I would like to talk to as to, hey, this is why we take the stance we take, because these people over here are insane and we offer a more sane and logical approach to your life. So I say the ones that are like hardcore in the cult that have never came out of it, they're probably never going to, and even if they did, they're going to nerd out over whatever comes next. And I hope it's something not political and they'll just go over there and wear a stupid t-shirt and go on with their day. But who I'm talking about when I say the news goes right over their heads is the apolitical types. And we all know them. We've all got them in our family. We all have friends who are these people. They're the people who will say to you, why is everybody protesting? What's that about? What are they mad about? What's going on? They don't know. And they don't know because they don't have time to tune in, or maybe because the news stresses them and they don't want to hear about it. So they just tune out, and all these massive stories are happening, and it's going right over their head because they're tuned out. Then they tune back in around election time when it comes time to vote. They tune back in around election time and they look around and, oh, how are we going to vote this time? Oh, yeah, well, Granddad was a Republican. I guess we vote Republican. Oh, is Trump the Republican this time? Okay. Yeah, well, groceries was cheaper. It's those people. I feel like those are the people that we really need to somehow figure out a way to connect with better and to reach and to talk and have discussions with those people, because they just come in at the end. The mainstream media is not covering the shit the way that they should. It's people like us. It's people like us that's actually calling it for what it is. And I'll give you an example of what I mean. So for years, we've heard Trump talk about Epstein, and we've heard them make Epstein one of their biggest talking points, MAGA especially. Oh, Trump's going to release the files. And I know we're all tired of talking about it, but it's going to stick around. It's not going away, folks. So for years, we've heard them talk about the Epstein files, and Trump promised to release them, right? Well, now that he's in there, he's not doing it. The problem is, the story that went right over everyone's head was when he said why that he parted ways with Epstein. It was because Epstein stole a 17-year-old girl from his spa. That was his defense as to why did you stop hanging around with a pedophile? Well, because he stole a kid from me. And that story went over so many people's heads because the mainstream media didn't zero in on that. They zeroed in and they crucified Dan Quayle for misspelling potato. But that went right over everybody's head. The mainstream media didn't cover it. So now the average voter that shows up on election day is not going to know it, because by then that'll be old news. They're not going to know. They're going to tune in and someone's going to say, yeah, Trump's still hanging in there. And the most you'll ever get someone to say is, yeah, they're trying to take Trump down. No, Trump's taking himself down, and we could be done with this guy if everybody would pull their heads out of their ass and look and see what's really going on. He just admitted it. They said, so who did he take for your spa? Was it Virginia Giuffre, who, by the way, passed away from suicide this past April? That's who we're talking about. She was 17 when Epstein took her from the spa. Why was a 17-year-old girl working in the spa? You know, it'd be different if he'd have said, you know, I think she was working in the kitchen, or I think she was I think she was outside whacking weeds, or I think she was, you know, in the laundry room. But no, she was in the spa. That's where she was working. She was handing grown men towels at 17 years old. He said it out loud, and the media, of course, is not going to focus on that. They're just going to talk about this like, well, really or really not really Epstein files, and they're not going to talk about it in the manner that they should. And if you go over to the Midas Touch Network, Ben Meiselas has been putting out a series of videos where he's been talking with Michael Wolff, who was Trump's former biographer. He's wrote 4 books on Trump, 2 books on Rupert Murdoch. He was going to write the biography on Jeffrey Epstein. He's been tight in that circle, and he knows how they all work and he knows how they all think. And Ben has really been uncovering some really good stuff with that guy. He's been pointing out a whole lot of things about Trump and Epstein that, again, will go right over a lot of people's heads because they're not following it the way that we're following it. And you have the gerrymandering going on down in Texas. In other words, they're trying to rig the game for Trump. That's the Cliff Note version of it. The average apolitical voter is never going to tune into that story because they don't even know what it means, don't even think about it. They don't even really care about it because it's not in their conversation. It's only going to come into their conversation when it comes time to vote. So there has to be a way for us to find a way to talk to more people like that, and those are the type of people we have conversations with. Those are the type of people we sit down with, and those are the type of people that we say, this is what's going on in this world. You need to understand what this big, beautiful bill was about because all you heard was no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and you didn't hear that that actually expires in, 3 years? It's not permanent, however the tax cuts for the rich are. So there's a lot of stuff that they hear, and they're hearing it from uneducated people at work or wherever it is in their life they bump into these people, or the Trump supporters who are still hanging on. Yeah, did you hear that what Trump did? He no tax on tips anymore. And then somebody goes, well, that's a good thing. And they don't see the 10,000 bad things that he's done, and they don't realize what he's done to this country. I know so many people, and those are the people that baffle me. They're the ones who will say, well, I don't know why y'all are worried about that. Like they wouldn't let him do that. Yeah, they're letting him do that. Everyone is rolling over for this guy. Oh, well, I don't think he really would do that. No, he really would. I don't think he would really say that. Here he is saying it. I mean, we could sit there and go to bat all day. And that's why I say to myself, like, you know, to try to sit here and talk to the MAGA cultists at this point, it's just kind of like, you know, it's just beating a dead horse. I saw that kid Parker. He was out talking to Trump supporters. And he's talking to him, and he walks up and he says to this one just random Trump supporter, and he says, did you hear about Joe Biden saying how that he was going to be dating a 10-year-old in 10 years? And the guy goes, no. And he goes, yeah, Joe Biden said he would be dating a 10-year-old in 10 years. What do you think about that? And the guy goes, oh, man, that's disgusting. That's awful. That's terrible. He's like, yeah, that's really bad, you know, and he starts criticizing Joe Biden immediately. Parker didn't show him not one shred of evidence, nothing. Just said that to him, and he immediately jumped on it. So then Parker says, what if I told you that that was Trump that said that instead? And the guy goes, oh, well, you could doctor that. I don't believe he said that. He goes, well, I have a video from like 1992 or 3. Here it is. He goes, well, they could doctor that. He's like, in 1992? He's like, yeah, that's doctored. He shows him say it. Well, that's probably doctored. So I would say to Parker, buddy, you're wasting your time talking to those people. They're not going to ever come back. They're gone. And I know that I may sound like the old man, but I do want to point something out. And this is what I would say to the Parkers of the world in his generation if I was sitting around with him. When I was your age, I had that same fire that I wanted to debate everyone that disagreed with me. And if this had have all came along for me when I was 24, 25 years old, I would have absolutely went on Jubilee, and I would have been like, yeah, come on, man, let's go. I'm ready for you. And I would have sat there and I would have absolutely roasted those people to no end. Back then, my uncle, who was, you know, about 25 years older than me, you know, same age difference between me and the Parkers of the world, my uncle was going, don't waste your time on them, Brando. Don't waste your time. You're beating a dead horse. And I used to say, yeah, but we got to reach people. We got to get through to people. We got to help them to see the error of their ways. And I guess I just grew into my uncle. I guess I just grew into that old man that's like, you know what? No, I ain't wasting my time with that. What I would rather do is talk with people who aren't paying attention and help them to pay attention. to the seriousness of what's going on. Because I really do believe, even though Trump is the president, and even though that it don't feel that way, especially if you live in the Bible Belt like me, but I still believe that in the grand scheme of things, MAGA is just a extremely loud, annoying minority. I think the majority of people could come together on a lot more issues if we talked it out and worked it out. I think a lot more people have way more in common than they think they have. They may not agree on every single thing or every single aspect of it or want to come at it from every single angle, but the reason that I say those people are a lost cause is because they're just focused on owning the libs. They're not focused on anything of any substance. And like I said earlier, they would be nerding out over something. If it wasn't Trump, it would be something else that would give them an identity. So they're going to go on to the next thing. And if a politician don't pounce on that, then, someone can create some new trend for them. They're trendy. They're people that latches on to trends. And they latched on to Trump because he was a trend, and he was a trend that give them power to punch down. But I say that we need to focus harder on talking about the issues at hand, because I really believe if you were sitting having a beer or just having dinner with an apolitical type person who only tunes in to vote at the last minute, I really believe if you were sitting there talking to those people, that they would probably agree with you that everyone should have a living wage. Now, they may not agree on the numbers. You may find disagreements right there, but you would be able to have a reasonable conversation about that, and you would be able to explain to them why you feel there should be a living wage. I believe most people does believe that we should have health care and we should be taken care of. They may not agree on how we get there, and they may not agree on necessarily who pays for it, but I do believe we could have a healthy conversation about it. And I believe that most people, even though they may not understand the government and how it works or the Constitution and the way it works, I think that most people do respect the rule of law. And I think that most people wouldn't want to see the law made a mockery of if you were talking with them reasonably. But if you're over here talking to an unreasonable person, they're just trying to be loud so they can own you, so they can flex and go back. So, to the ones that don't talk it every day, I understand that some of you aren't in a position to talk about it. I have friends and family that's like, man, I'd love to get on and talk with you, Brando, but I would lose my business where I live. And they're right, they would. But they don't have to necessarily do that publicly. They could have these conversations privately. They could share videos with people privately, let people know what's really going on, help them to understand what's really going on, help them to understand why Trump was able to do some of the things he did. Because I just think that there's so many people who can't tune in all the time. They are tuned out, and they tune in right at the last second. And all they've heard is the loud, obnoxious Trump supporter at work. Because I've been in that situation. I've been in jobs where you heard the loud, obnoxious Trump supporter talk all day long. Never shut up about it. Never stopped talking about it. Meanwhile, the person that thought he was full of shit the entire time was standing over here just kind of being quiet. God, I don't want to fucking argue with this idiot. I don't want to get fired. I don't. So they stay quiet about it. And then the person that doesn't watch or pay attention, that's all they heard. That's all they heard was that guy ranting and raving about it. And all they heard was that everybody's being mean to Trump. All they heard was everybody's being cruel to Trump. All they heard was the Democrats are trying to tear him down. All they heard was that Democrats are for killing babies and for, all the trans and sports issues. That's all they're going to hear. They're basically just going to hear a Joe Rogan highlight reel. And so, and I understand why that people don't speak up at work and why but when they don't, the other people are so empowered they're going to, and then there's the people sitting on the fence in the middle. That's all they're hearing is that one obnoxious prick, and that's all they know about. They only know his version, his side of it. So we just have to be willing to speak up more. I understand you always can't. I get that, but there's other ways you can go about it. Okay, say you're standing around at work, right? And you're standing around, let's say you're ready to clock out, you're off the time clock, and some jackass is saying something totally off the wall that's totally wrong. And you look over at a friend of yours and he rolls his eyes like, that's some bullshit. Well, later you can have a conversation and you can say, Dwayne over here was a freaking moron, wasn't he? Did you hear what he was saying? And you could point out how that he was wrong about it. You don't necessarily have to come out and get fired at work. I'm not saying do that. But, you just have to start speaking up, and we have to start reaching those apolitical people who aren't paying attention to these big stories that goes over their heads. And it's sad. that it does, but I totally understand why that people goes through this world and chooses not to follow politics. I get it. I follow it, but I totally understand the ones that don't. When they say to me, "Man, my I don't have the temperament for it. My mental health can't stand it." Well, I understand that, and I understand that maybe it is hard for you to listen to it and follow it every day, and maybe it is a detriment to your mental health. It is to mine. I get that, but by not paying attention and by either voting on the wrong side of the aisle or not voting at all just because you don't care, that's a detriment to your way of life. When it's all said and done, you're looking around one day when these people says, "Why is my hospital closed?" Well, that's because of the big beautiful bill. Well, why can't I get my coverage? Well, that's because of the big beautiful bill. Well, wait a minute, I thought I had no taxes here. Well, you didn't read it close enough. So these things are gonna hurt these people eventually. They're gonna feel it. They have to know though when they feel it, why they felt it. Because as long as they have the loudmouth going, "It's the Democrats done it, the Democrats done it," then that's all they're going to believe, and that's all they're going to know. So people needs to learn how to speak up and get that message out there and let people know what's going on, because a lot of people don't. That's the point I'm trying to make. The news going over people's heads, we have to reach those people, and we have to let them know what's really going on. Otherwise, they're just going to continue to show up and vote at the last minute on the wrong side of things, and then wonder why things haven't gotten better. We can sit here all day long and we can point to the obvious cult members, but they're the loudest, they're the most obnoxious, and they're not going to change. If it's not Donald Trump, it'll be somebody else. And I don't know which way the pendulum's going to swing. I don't know which way I don't know how the Republican Party will try to do life after Trump. I don't know if they'll try to dig in and do Don Jr. or Barron Trump or something. I don't know which way they'll try to go with it. I think they would absolutely just get off on it being another Trump. But if they were ever to try to bring back just a reasonable GOP kind of candidate, just more your old school style of candidate, if they ever tried to resort back to that and say that J.D. Vance tried to go back to his never a Trump guy stance, if they went that direction with it, then I think, a lot of the people that have supported Trump the hardest, they would just go latch on to some other craze. They would just go latch on to whatever Duck Dynasty style show come out next, and that's where they would be. These people have always been here. They've just been nerding out over something else. Only problem this go around, they nerded out over something that affected people's lives. And so we have to keep talking about these things. We have to keep pointing these things out. And I make a lot of people uncomfortable. I know I do, because there's been conversations where someone has tried to say to me, "Hey, did you hear about that trans girl in the volleyball game?" And I'm like, no, I didn't. But there's 500,000 athletes in the NCAA, and less than 10 of them are trans, so that's probably why I didn't hear about it. But I did hear the stories coming out of Georgia about the young women that laid and bled out because they didn't have help. What do you mean they didn't have help? Well, they didn't have help because you weren't paying attention. Because you let their rights be took away from them, you wasn't paying attention. Because you was looking over here at something else, or listening to that asshole at work, and you wasn't listening to the person that was being reasonable. You weren't paying attention. And that's why, like when I went off on my Joe Rogan video, I even had people reach out to me to ask if I was okay after that video. It's just because I'm so sick of that guy. And I'm sick of the way that he goes about it. And I'm sick of the fact that he sits there and points to these things that 9 times out of 10 ain't even happening. And if it is, he's put a completely different spin on it. He's put a completely different spin and twisted it to make it sound as bad as he could possibly make it. And meanwhile, there's so much bigger things going on that he paved the way for, that he helped pave the way for by normalizing it. And again, those apolitical types we want to reach, they'll listen to Joe Rogan, and they're sitting there listening to something like that. So they saw Trump come on there at the last minute and just sit there and smile and talk to him. And they saw Joe say things to him like, "Well, now I'm going to give you the floor. You talk about the 2020 election being stolen, because no one's ever let you talk about that." Instead of saying, "Dude, you're full of shit. It was never stolen. There's no evidence for it, and you've never brought it." The interesting part about that, though, is that Rogan did give him the floor, and he didn't bring any evidence. And Rogan would give him the floor any day he wanted it. Rogan would give him 3 hours if he had the evidence tomorrow to show it. He got back in office and still didn't have it. Instead, he went back and started talking about Obama and anything else that he could do to try to distract from Epstein and all the stuff that's coming out on him. But We live in a country, folks, where a guy said out loud, a president, not a guy, the leader of the free world said out loud into a live microphone that the reason he's no longer friends with a pedophile is because the pedophile stole a 17-year-old girl from him. Tell your apolitical brother that story. Show him the clip. Let him see that. And maybe he'll understand why that we're over here trying to talk and why we're trying to make sense of this stuff and why we're trying to speak up about it. You know, a lot of people's like, oh, they just, it's for views, it's for clicks, it's for this and that. No, it's because we care about the issues at hand. I don't care, I'm going to talk about what I feel like needs to be talked about. And if that video gets 1 million views, great. I'm happy. And that means a lot to me. Thank you all for sharing it. Thank you all for pushing it out there. It's awesome. But if I make a video about a subject that I think is equally important and that video gets 15,000 views, I'm fine with that too, because I wanted to get that out there to the world. And I notice the ones that do better and the ones that don't. I do. I pay attention to those things. I pay attention when I lose followers over a certain video. I don't care, because I want to talk about what I feel matters. I'm going to give my take on it. I ain't saying I'm always right about it. I may not be. I may have it wrong. I'm not saying that I'm perfect. But I'm gonna put my thoughts out there on it because I felt like it was important enough to talk about that day. And if somebody says, well, that's a bridge too far for me, I can't hang with you because you said this, or I can't hang with you because you stood up for this group of people or that group of people, well, I mean, it's as easy to hit the unsubscribe button as it is to hit the subscribe button. And I know that, like, there's people out there, you're not supposed to say that as a YouTuber. You're supposed to always be going, oh, come on, everybody, rally around me. Well, I appreciate y'all rallying around me. I'm very proud of this community. We've crossed over 800,000 people. I'm truly proud of that. But I'm going to talk about the issues that I feel needs to be talked about and let the chips fall where they may. So to the trolls, it's like, well, he only talks about Trump for clicks or views. No, I talk about Trump because he absolutely is shredding our Constitution, and because I don't want my children to grow up in a world where that is normalized and where Donald Trump's style of politics is viewed as normal. I think it's one of the most dangerous things we've ever faced, and I don't have a whole lot of faith that we even have a democracy anymore. So I'm trying to raise awareness and shine a light on a lot of things that some people don't want to talk about, and trying to get those news stories to hit people's ears, the news stories that's going over their heads. And you all help me do that every day, and I truly appreciate you for it. So just always know that I'm, we've built a hell of a thing here. Somehow or another, you all managed to build a community that's got over 800,000 people around a guy who's sitting in a town with 9,000 people. So that's a pretty big deal, and I truly appreciate all of you. And we'll just keep pushing forward, and we'll keep fighting the good fight. Before I go real quick, I want to remind everybody, yes, I do have a Patreon. I have people ask me that from time to time, and I'm going to be going live on it here in about 15 minutes, 17 minutes. I guess, 15. I looked at the wrong clock. So, here in about 15 minutes at 12:45, I'll be over on Patreon for Backstage with Brando. We'll just pick up this conversation kind of where it left off and talk about things and just talk amongst ourselves about how we can do better and move forward. And so we're doing that. I'm still writing over on Substack. I'm on Blue Sky. I'm still on all the Meta platforms and TikTok. And occasionally I will throw an insult at somebody on Twitter. I don't post as much on it because I can't stomach Elon, but I do keep a look at the dumpster fire so I can see what's going on over there and to get a gauge on what everybody's saying. But folks, just help to get these stories out there to those apolitical type of people who aren't paying attention. Help get these stories out there to the ones who it's going over their heads. And let's just keep putting in the work. I said before the election, I said this. I said, if Kamala Harris wins this thing, I said, we have to keep focused. We have to stay laser focused, and we can't let up. And if she was in office today, we would be sitting here battling something that they would be cooking up trying to knock her down. So it's never going to go away. This kind of thing is never going to go away. Whether we win, whether we lose, no, it doesn't matter. It's always going to be here, and we always have to keep trying to get it out there. But we have to find a way to reach those people who aren't paying attention, because those are the ones that votes at the last minute, and 9 times out of 10 they vote against their own interests and don't even realize they've done it. So think about that, give it some thought, let me know your ideas, and we'll just keep moving forward. I truly appreciate everyone for being here with me today. We'll be back Tuesday, same time, same channel, and y'all have a great rest of your week.